or if it's going to be better for you. Just
What do you think? What's
I
your
think for longevity and just like
We all have our things.
Look at me today. Not one, but
Pay it forward.
just putting it here just in case, you know, someone else needs it.
Chase, Chase and I don't have a thing that I have to remember. He's a golden child.
Easy, yeah. Easy button. Careful, his head gets. Hey. Child was strong. That's a good one. I like it. Works so well.
Okay. Oh, meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. Muckout.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
here?
Mr. Perkins.
Here.
Mr. Rastigar.
Here.
And I believe Jim is on. So he is sick, so he's joining us virtually today.
Noted.
Okay, with that, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes dated November 16th, 2023.
Move to approve the minutes.
Have a second?
Second, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to the monthly activity and financial report. I'm so used to saying Pat and Anne Marie, so I have to say Cody and Anne Marie.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Directors. Appreciate your time today. Given my first executive director report with the actual title on, so we have the slides. One sec. Oh, thank you.
Chase doesn't, but I do.
That's true.
How do you feel about business cards?
I'm against them.
You don't carry those either.
I do.
Here we are. Sorry about that. We're good. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. Yes. Yeah, he's got it. Well, again, it has been a very exciting and busy year for Boise Center, so I'm excited to give the activity updates here to start out. On the executive director report, Boise Center, the district achieved a record revenue year on both sides of the district in the center side, so it was a great year. November was another $1 million revenue month. That's been something that we've echoed over and over this year, and it's something we're very proud of as we continue to increase the revenues from the center side. Boise Center's EMOD score, and for those that aren't sure what an EMOD score is, it's our modification score for workers' comp rates. So it's a score that we gauge ourselves on how safe we're doing things, how many worker comp claims we have within the year. And this is something I want to recognize Brandon Doty for, because this continues to be a number that goes down year and year after. At this point in time, this is our record low. What that is that equates to about $28,000 in total savings from the insurance side. Because we are outperforming the mean is about a 1.0, meaning everybody in the industry at that level is average, and then anything above. In my time here, I've seen us up as high as a 1.12 at one point in time, taking initiatives on the safety and security side of things. We continue to watch that come down. Now, again, those are some of these things as we have a nature of forklifts going through the building, knives in the kitchen, things like that. There are a lot that we do to try to protect that, but the nature of the business does have some natural risk to it. So we mitigate that as best as possible through our safety security program. That is done through stand-ups at the one-on-one or stand-up meetings with our wait staff before they get out on the floor to service a large event, operational meetings as well, and then tabletop discussions with the safety security manager has really impacted this. And this is one of the goals I've recommended to the board for next year.
Who calculates that? Is that a score that the insurance company?
Yes, the state insurance fund is the one that calculates that. We completed the refresh and remodel of the sales and marketing offices, so those are now done, and the team over there is very appreciative of that. It had been a little while since we'd updated carpet, even equipment such as desks were from 1990 in some cases. So Over there, the sales and marketing office definitely looks like it's now come into the modern age. The boardroom over there has new technology, and it has really allowed us more flexibility for having different meeting spaces as this space over here and in rooms like this continue to get booked by the events. Boise Center East refresh begins this month, and it's actually already underway with new carpet and wall coverings. Very excited about this project in particular. This was one that I've kind of taken the lead on over my time here. There's been a lot of comments from the client side. I was just talking to the team about this, from clients that want to come in and really make the space their own and have a theme, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, their color's blue. So having some burgundies and greens all over in the carpet does challenge them a little bit in trying to transform the room. So we're going with a more neutral color palette, a lot of tans, grays, blacks, something that'll be a little bit more timeless and allow us to potentially expand some of that timing as well before we replace carpet. Depends on how the use goes and how quickly that carpet gets worn out, and that drives a lot of that decision making from the capital side. That is to be scheduled to be done about mid-January, so there is some stuff that I would like to show the board at some point in time, and I think January 19th, we're having an event internally that would be a good opportunity to really showcase that space over in East, and I think it's gonna have a big effect. We are gonna slowly start coming through that color palette. We're starting over in the East building this year. Next year is one of the capital plans is carpet in this area as well as the offices. And we will continue that color palette as we do that 2025, 2026. So December of 25, January of 26, we're looking at the ballroom at that point in time. And we will do the junior ballroom, the ballroom in the main lobby, and then they get finished off with 110 and 120. And we do these in a phased out approach so we don't impact operations and the ability to continue to staff events or hold events, and then making sure that we're able to, from the convention market. That's one thing I know I work very closely with Ali. When I'm holding these spaces for capital, I tend to hold them a little bit extra time on each side. So that way, if a convention comes in, we can kind of be flexible on how we want to move it forward or backwards to take most advantage of that. It is getting harder and harder as the calendar grows, and you guys will see that on my update with the conventions numbers. As we get more and more busy, these are the times right now in particular over the holidays that our operations team, we're actually supporting all different departments and getting hours right now because there's enough cleaning projects, maintenance projects, things that needed to be done. Historically, we've had slow time in the summer, and that just has not been happening. So we're taking advantage of the holiday break. We're currently conducting interviews for the Director of Finance role. As it's been noted that Anne Marie has put in her notice for March, the end of March, March 31st. We are at the process now where Jody from the Finance Committee has joined in on the final interviews for in-person. We have one more tomorrow, and then we will review where we're at that point in time and see if we got our candidate. But there's more to come on that, as I'll update the board as that goes on. Boise Center's employee swap closed last week. This has been something, this was kind of Pat's brainchild for many years, and it's something really, really cool that we've been doing where the staff will bring in lightly used items from their own house or things that just never got used, even a gift or something that wasn't maybe too small for a child or something that could be used by somebody else. Good condition items that's not meant for it. But I tell our team to get things that go to the dump. That's not the intent of this. They bring it in, and then the team gets to go through and shop for about a week and a half. And if they've got items that they brought in, but it's truly doesn't matter, name tag, title, you can go in and shop around, get clothes, shoes. There was even people that brought in food for our staff, and all, I would say 80% of the items got used and taken by our own staff. We took the remainder and donated them to the Idaho Youth Ranch. So it's another initiative that the center does to take care of its own first and then give back into the community. Proud of that. We have an employee party scheduled over at the Grove Hotel on January 8th. So the team is getting excited. We tend to wait until after everybody else's holiday parties are over, because right now our team is tired of seeing holiday parties to a certain degree because they've worked so many. So putting it right in before the holidays is a good little break for our team. We've actually done a swap with the Grove Hotel for a trade out. So that way we took on their holiday party, they will take on ours. Historically, we've been doing them internally and ourselves. There's people that have to on the staff naturally work, close out things to make sure things get done at the night, lock up the building. So this is really going to allow us to truly take advantage as a team, as a whole, and have a party and then go home and able to spend the day. We've got the dark day after this as well. So the team will really be able to take advantage of that. One of the activities and one of the things that Pat's talked about in the past, but we did it again this year, was as we participated with the Wowgistics Committee in decorating a Wowgistics tree for Festival of Trees. So in the middle there, and Cliff is very much the creative engine behind a lot of these ideas. The team works closely with the Wowgistics Committee works very closely with Cliff. He presents some ideas about what maybe a theme would be for this year, and the team voted on the 100-year anniversary of the Craters of the Moon. So we have a very cool art piece right there. That's a one-of-a-kind art piece that was created by Warren Lassen for the Craters of the Moon 100-year anniversary. And then the team did a great job in decorating, and it's a really cool activity to watch the committee come in on that. It's the Sunday before festival gets going, and they decorate it as a group. It's a cool team building activity. So thank you, Cliff, for your efforts and your creativity. A couple other photos. One on the right is of the tree a little bit up closer, so you can see the moon itself, the bigger ornaments that look like the moon. And then on the left side is of the gala dinner, which was a huge success this year. Several of our board attended that. Okay, as I spoke about a little bit, as we tend to look at the convention pipeline very closely, this is something that continues to be an area where I'm always shocked to see the number of conventions we've got coming in. 2024, and I know Pat spoke about this last month, is looking very much, it is what it is on the calendar. We've got room for short-term bookings here and there, but for the most part, having 61 conventions already confirmed into 2024 is a record at this point in time. I'll let Ali give you kind of the percentages on those increases, what we've seen year over year. But we continue to see very strong demand from the convention side and from the local side. And that is the big part of what we're really working hard at doing, is making sure that we're balancing that calendar in a way that is most advantageous for the district and the center, because I will get into the hotel occupancy rates and things like that. Right now, the team, and this is probably a little premature to even get into too much about it, but we are taking it. I'm a very data-driven person, as I presented to the board in the past. And we have put together some analytics to really start evaluating events and conventions, local events and conventions, from a revenue, economic impact standpoint, and putting some weights into those. Right now, it's very preliminary. I want to recognize Julie for her efforts in putting together, and as well as Anne Marie and the team, and putting together some analytics that are really coming out. Like, so far, we've just been testing the events, and they are coming out in a way that I'm shocked right on our first go, that it looks like it's evaluating where we would book and when we would go into booking some of these things with conventions more than obviously 12 months out. Some of our bigger local events that we might not want to step on with the convention, we're evaluating with a score, similar to what I talked about, an EMOD score from the insurance side, kind of taking that same approach from an event side. More to come. We're in the test process right now, but really exciting things are happening from that one first document we put together. So again, 2025, having 10 already booked in there. This is the one thing that we're going to continue to struggle is those local events are starting to feel that compression on the calendar. As I attend several holiday events during this time, I've heard it from several of our local events about how hard it is to get a space and get a date on the calendar. So it is something that we need to continue to be very strategic as we get into 25, 26, and as you can see, even 27, having that much interest in it already. Questions on that one at all? Okay.
On the right, is that total for the year? Local events or just total events?
On the far right side,
My far right, yeah. 147, 76, 150.
those are total from 2023, and then the totals from 2022 fiscal year.
So that includes all local and convention.
If I might.
Yeah.
The figures on the right it's a compilation of everything. So if we're looking at conventions, it's what's on the books in terms of definite, tentative, and pending conventions, where we are today versus where we were same day year prior. Got it.
Okay.
So it's conventions only.
Correct.
It is, okay. On to the fiscal management side. Again, this is something that we've continued to, we're having a record year. We've had a record year on the fiscal side, finishing off, and I'll let Anne reupdate this on her slides there, but we finished off at about a $10.6 million year. That's 10.6, is that where we're at? I want to make sure I'm correct on that. We were at 9.1 last year. It's either 10.6 or 10.7, which is about 1.6 over last year's total. And again, continues to be a very strong year. As you can see, the controllable on the capital expenditure side, we are giving some money back on the capital side this year, in particular, having some things that fell into next year. One of those being the Baller project, as Pat identified last month. So those are straddling fiscal year end, and it tends to push us into, when we go into RFP, for these things, and then they can bid out, and when that project happens, we're trying to get much better about making sure we're forecasting those in the appropriate year if we know that it's gonna straddle and carry over and impact another year. So more to come on that, but that additional capital needs really protects that cash for those capital needs for future years. Facility utilization, this continues to be an area, and I want to highlight the economic impact part here, and we'll talk briefly a little bit. The DI model that we've historically used has changed, and this is probably a little premature to get into exactly what's changed, but we did note that the local economic impact numbers went significantly up because they are now calculating similar to how the BSU model calculated for that local economic impact, and it is pushing economic impact numbers much higher than what they are. So pending further review, we want to make sure that we're getting you guys the accurate information, knowing that that has been updated, but we're going to see a very large increase in economic impact reporting based on that DI model.
And just for the local, not the out of town?
It is impacting,
We were using the DI model and it was not giving them credit for the local events. The assumption was that the local dollars didn't stimulate the local economy because you were taking money from bucket A and moving it over to bucket B. There was a new module that we added to it, which says how much economic impact are we creating? Not how much economic impact is the whole created in the whole valley. So this looks more at what are we creating downtown? So it is including the local events. And so what we're looking at is trying to figure, we've got to identify what was the total impact of that change so that we can then compare apples to apples and say our economic impact went from here to here, not because of the model change, but because of, or we need to restate last year, right, for the model change so that we can identify what the effect was.
So you can plug in the old numbers to get the old years to get new numbers.
yes, and to check that variance and making sure that this is on the goals, and with my goals, it was before this update we discovered with the DI model, so I want to be mindful of that when we head into goals, because I think it'll be very easy to outperform that goal if that's the number, if the new DI model is calculating that. I want to know if the board wants to be seeing those as economic impact reported on. So more to come on this as we get more information about that new update to the model. But as you can see, the team did a great job of outperforming the goals from the local side and from the convention side both. This is where I really put more effort into the team on, let's put goals in place that maybe are more tangible than just keeping people busy in the number of RFPs or the number of RFQs that we're seeing come in from the event side, or RFPs that we're seeing come in from the event side. And we're focused on total dollars to the district and total dollars to the center as goals, because those are what I want them spending more time on those future years than just the number of RFPs that we're seeing come through from that side. Occupancy and ADR. This continues to be something that every time I get the STR report or see the tax dollars come in every month, it shocks us a little bit. Occupancy decreased a little last month, but the remains in a historically high as far as tax revenues, and that is because of that strong ADR. Highest rate for October at $154. We continue to see in the last 6 months the highest in the same period for prior years over year. Occupancy is dipping down a little bit from prior year. What's holding strong is those occupancy rates. Our ADRs are holding strong to keep us on the tax revenue side strong.
You know, that was something you've been watching previously. Is there any concern there as far as occupancy rate?
Nothing really on that side, other than I think, again, it's going to continue to be a challenge to get some of those hotels to play in that group rate side of things. This is where I think looking at more of that citywide approach and also from the local balance with the local events and the conventions makes a lot of sense to pay attention to where we have opportunity for more availability from occupancy and where it may be getting less, and we focus more on the events, the local events in those months. So being very strategic in that. That answer your question, or is that where you're looking at? Again, this is another very similar slide here, which shows you the room demand decreased by 5% and revenues decreased by 6%, but following a historical trend, revenues increased due to continued ADR, as I just spoke to on that. It's very similar message to the board. Any questions on my report before I hand it over to Anne Marie?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow members of the board. As Cody indicated on here, the revenues were 10.8 million for the Boise Center, ending the year. The district is at 11.8. Aquatics is 280,000, so we have a combined revenue of 22.9 million compared to prior year of 19.3. So our revenue was $3.5 million higher than prior year. Expenses were 1.9 million higher, and that would be related to the Boise Center where variable costs. So if our revenue is higher, our costs are going to be higher. And then our revenue over expenses was a loss on the Boise Center side of 6.7 compared to the budget of 9.1. The district was 11.6 compared to a budget of 9.3. Aquatics is very close. So we ended up with a combined revenue of $5 million compared to budget of 542. So we're $4.6 million ahead of budget. One of the things we do focus on is the gross margin, and it did decline 68 basis points. It was offset by a decrease in our SG&A expenses or sales general and administrative 151 points. The SG&A decrease was kind of impressive to me considering we had increased utility costs. We have more of our software becoming software as a service, so that which increases our cost for the software, at least on the expense side for fees. And then our insurance is obviously going up too. One of the things on the insurance is this is our third, when we went out to bid, we had 3 years of fixed rates. It has been going up, not because the rate's been changing, but because the value of our real estate has been increasing. Our revenues are increasing, so our liquor liability is increasing. So that has all contributed to the increases in the insurance.
I know last month you were talking about having to do something kind of funky with the insurances.
They had to bring in a reinsurance, so it took a little longer. And that's one of the conversations we've had is how do we move out of this? Because what happens is our renewals the end of November. Well, we're in the middle of our fiscal year end and we're trying to get insurance renewed, and it's just the timing is off. So we're going to work on getting that insurance renewed earlier. It'll still be effective the end of November, but to give them time now that we've got over that reinsurance level, it just takes a little more work. One of the reasons the gross profit also, or the gross margin also declined was we had higher convention discounts of 152,000. Sorry, it was an increase of 152,000 over last year. So it is one of the changes we made in the discounts that we were giving or providing for increased food and beverage and increased rental. So again, you'll see here that we're 1.3 million or 13% over budget on the district for tax revenues. Our budget here was 8.7, so we had a variance of 2 million, and that's 23% over prior year, or over budget, sorry. And I think that one thing is Cody identified was that our capital is $777,000 under budget, which resulted in our transfers being part of being 3.7 million lower than budget. We postponed about $836,000 in capital projects, and the largest one being the Bollard project for the West Loading Dock. That's about $300,000, and that got shifted to 2024. And then you've heard me talk about the higher repairs and the maintenance due to the fact that we've increased our capitalization threshold, and that impact was about $130,000. This is our utilization. We had 8 months in 2023 that were exceeded prior year, and we had 4 months that exceeded 2019. And you'll notice on here that we have 2019 and then we skipped to 22. And it's because 19 was our kind of our marker year before COVID. And then on the aquatic center, we do have the reporting requirements in place. I've gotten the hotel nights from Ryan through November, and so there were 2,614 room nights. That equates to a tax credit back to them, or a room rent credit of about $20,000 for 2024. And the part of the reporting is every month he will be sending me a report telling me how many events they had and the room nights generated from each one of those events. And so that way we can continue to track how much the room credit will be for the next year.
And when does that room credit go back to them, or when is that credited to them? Is it February?
February, I believe, after they presented, and then we've had time to.
That's what they were, the agreement says that they have to provide that report by February. In this case, he's provided that report. We have not been accruing that credit, but I'm gonna accrue the credit into 2023. So, because it's being earned in 23, and so that'll show up in 23, and then we'll start accruing the credit every month going forward.
Yeah, Madam Chair, as I recall, the deal is they get credit up to half their monthly rent
Yes.
for rooms that they can identify specifically resulted from their activities. So it's pretty important that we review these initial requests with a skeptical eye, because whatever we do, we will then continue to do forever.
Set precedent.
And the information, they're getting a lot of the information from the CVB. So they're actually, the CVB, they're actually using a third party as well to look at collect the room nights for them and figure out how many room nights they have.
So to answer your question, I think it would be February because he's provided us the information in a timely manner, but if they hold off till February, it might be as late as March on that credit, so.
And at the time we do that, I'd like to understand what we're doing in terms of your favorite comment, verify.
Yes.
Trust
but verify, yes, you'll repeat that one over and over, so.
They do give us a detailed list, shows all of the attendees that are out of state, because they know which groups are coming from out of state. And then they divide it, and so then there's the high school events, which, for example, they had 2 high school events, and the number of room nights was 24. So, and they came from Idaho Falls, I can't remember where the second one was. And then they have the regional meets, and there's one other type of meet. And so they break them out by meet, so we can start to get an idea of what meets generate the biggest hotel or largest hotel nights.
Thank you.
You've got 2 accountants putting the reports together. I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, and the information comes from CBB, from the room pickup reports at the hotels, right? So it's
It's verifiable.
verifiable through their room block at the hotels, right?
We also have Pat Walsh is our owner's rep on the project, and we've retained Pat to work, stay on the project until all of the construction is complete to make sure that we end up with a project lien free. And so I just wanted to,
What's outstanding?
pardon?
What is outstanding?
Not on our part, but there is, so we paid, up to the 9.6. And then the remainder belongs to the aquatics. And I think
So they're still on the hook for a remainder of that part there. We want to make sure until that's all done that there's.
I guess my question is, it's not all done.
there was about $1 million left that needed to be funded
Okay,
after our time.
and are they doing that? I mean, I guess, I go out there every week, so.
There's a few
Are there
punch list
other-
items that are still lingering on out there, and that's what Pat's gonna stay on through and make sure as the owner rep, that those things are followed through all the way to the end, payments are made.
Okay, I thought it was finished. thought we would.
It's open, that's a,
Got it,
again,
okay.
Boise Center East, when it was open and we had occupancy, and when it actually was like finished from a punch list item, those are tend to be months and months difference, and Chase could probably speak a little bit to that.
Ongoing forever.
Not forever, but yes, there's definitely ongoing projects, so.
That's the end of my presentation. Any other questions?
Any questions for Cody or Anne Marie?
I just pretend I'm high. Wondering about cash
26 million.
invested.
Pretty darn close because I ran this really tight on cash this month because I put $3 million in November over into investments. So yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, we might keep $1 million, maybe, you know, but we're not even right now, not even $1 million in our checking accounts. In fact, never mind.
And you're feeling pretty good about the accuracy of that 16 million.
Stabilization.
Additional capital needs and stabilization fund.
I have not had time to look at the stabilization fund and that is my project between now and the next board meeting is to look at the stabilization fund. I had commented last month's GFOA came out with the new guidelines and recommendations on how to calculate your stabilization fund. So I need to get in there, take a look at it, look at our policy, see where we need to update it, see where our calculations need to be updated. And then I will bring a recommendation to the board next month because I'll need you to approve it as a commitment for the audited financial statements.
And then you might be able to speak to capital. Capital's kind of a,
It's kind of a moving target a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is the approach that we've taken is to protecting the capital needs for the next 10 years or 5 years, sorry, with the 2 million about each year. We do have projects on the books and we have an aging 30-plus-year-old building here. Carpet, as I spoke to, is on the books for about every 7 to 8 years. We're trying to extend that if we can. Again, quality of the carpet goes into a lot of that. What we got in East is and you can actually see this is what's happening is called tenting. There's some seams that you can see create some trip hazard potential, things like that are happening between the carpet squares. And so this is a good opportunity, but that is something that I want to take a look at and be very strategic as going forward. Is our capital needs are something that I think we've protected, but I think I can get a little bit more targeted.
that's a question I was kind of having. Are you going to do carpet squares again or just?
It depends on where. Carpet squares are very, very important when it comes to damaged carpet. So you're not having to do patches in the middle of what they call field carpet like this. So inside the meeting spaces and inside the ballrooms, those are definitely going to have carpet squares going forward. That allows us to be able to charge a client if they damage 3, 4, some cases 21 carpet squares. If they've drugged something across the carpet, we don't have to replace big, large sections or have patches that don't look like they're complete. And allows us to just take those out. And we have a certain charge based on, we know what we pay for those carpet squares and a little bit of labor built in it. And that's already an item within our system that we can bill a client if they've got 5 carpet squares damaged from a trade show. And that allows us to then replace the room and it looks like it should have when they checked in.
And that's a big enough of an advantage to deal with the tenting.
Yes. Yep.
See, okay.
And again, we've had carpet squares on this side that have not been having that same issue. It's 2 different types of carpet, one Shaw and one is Tandis over there. So that's causing probably some of that. So we're tried a different product over there. It's probably the end of that product for now. And we're going with something different, which is what we've seen a little longer life on the current product over here on the west side. So.
Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
might. This GFOA requirement, how much of a commitment do we have to make?
It's not, number one, it's not a requirement, it's a recommendation. Cause you know, that's what they do is they bring a whole team of people together, put a committee together and come up with recommendations of what best practices for government entities to follow. Based on how we're doing it today, I would suspect that there's going to be some increase. I'm not sure though. Until I go through the process, I don't know what their new requirements are, but I can't imagine it was to drop it.
Well, this board is interested in the capital budget, I don't think we're interested in making commitments 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road for capital today.
I understand that. We have in the stabilization fund, a commitment for capital for 2 years. So we are covering that.
You don't, there's items in the stabilization fund, which in your mind you can proceed without further board action.
No. Yeah, part of the stabilization fund, in order to use it, it requires a board action.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what, if you remember in COVID, we made the decision to use the stabilization fund and then we didn't need it. So we kind of revoked the commitment just to send a message that we were willing to use our regular ongoing cash flow and not touch the stabilization fund.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, Madam Chair.
And by having that in there, I don't think that you're committing that to the future years. It's been a way that the prior executive director has really kind of shown you guys, this is what we have coming down the pipeline for the next 5 years in capital needs. So again, that can be approached in different ways if you guys would like in the future. I would like to be more strategic and a little bit closer to what the actual numbers will need.
And I think when we started this stabilization fund, we'd never gone through a COVID. And that gives us a whole nother source of information to look at and go, how did COVID impact our cash flows? How long did it, take us to get through COVID? And assuming that that would be about the worst thing that could happen again, will give us a better idea of what that stabilization fund commitment should look like.
Talk about something that impacted our entire industry. That's
about as big of a test as you can have.
absolutely, without insurance then kicking in on some other bigger natural disaster or something of that nature.
Well, we'll discuss January. Okay.
And I will ask for a finance committee meeting so that we
Okay.
can sit down and go through it first.
Perfect.
Before we,
I will just kind of finish off by saying thank you to the board for their support this year. In particular, it was a great, very successful year from the Boise Center side. I intend to update the slides and the presentation from the executive director report going forward. I look for feedback from the board and what that looks like. I'd like to be giving you guys information in a way that you can make decisions on or be a little bit more strategic in the way that you guys are operating. So if there's anything that you're not seeing that you currently would want to see, please reach out to me. I will be reaching out to each of you individually and kind of seeing what that looks like going forward. But that is my intent, is to kind of finish off the year with this format, making sure that we did our last report of the year in the same way that you guys have seen in prior months. But starting next month, I'd like to take a new opportunity to look at the way the information is presented, but not cause any alarm or concern. So mindful of that going forward.
So things we want to see, things we don't need to see,
Absolutely.
contact Cody. Okay. All right, any other questions?
Are we on this slide yet? The April 23rd meeting, I would suggest we look at moving, since it's the same day as leadership conference. So if we're going to have people attend that again, that would be a conflict, I think.
Oh, yeah, because
Good catch.
Tuesday's a half day.
Isn't. You never know. Right, is
Is this in the packet?
Yep, it's at the very last page.
I assume that we're gonna get calendar invites for all these dates.
Yes.
They're on there. I think they got sent out.
Thought they did already, but I'll confirm.
Pam, they might have come from Pam.
I'll double check and confirm the transition.
Well, while we got our calendars out, that employee party on the 8th, is that a daytime deal?
It is an evening event, so it's a dinner.
Oh.
If the board would like to attend, please let me know, and you're more than welcome, absolutely. I think that the team would even love to have you guys there, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, with that, I entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, on the next, which is an executive session, so we do the roll call. Well, so I need a motion and then we do roll. Right,
So I'll make a motion to enter the executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-206 1A to consider the evaluation of executive director of Cody Fund.
have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. McCall,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Aye.
Mr. Walker,
All right.
Mr. Ernst.
Aye.
Mr. Restigar.
So feel free, this will maybe 15 minutes. All right, back on to other business. We are now back from executive session into open session. On to other business, sales update, Ally.
Up here, Madam Chair. members of the board. I was just up here reporting on end of year. I was a lot bigger, pregnant at the time, but it was kind of crazy to be up here again. Already talking about our end of year for 2023. Nonetheless, happy to give a recap. We're looking at the end of year for 2023. We'll take a look at 2024 outlook and then just some kind of general industry chatter. Starting off with 2023 recap. So I know this came up during the executive director's report, and may have gotten a little bit ahead of myself by including this economic impact figure, but nonetheless, there it is. These are the targets that we set for the building, the key performance indicators prior to FY23, tracking room nights, attendance, economic impact, and the number of local conventions and events. I mean, really the story here is we performed well in all categories. We were just shy of our attendance target. But just taking a couple minutes to talk about the economic impact figure. We work with two different calculators, essentially, to compute economic impact. We have a BSU formula that was developed prior to my arrival. I think it's been around for probably at least 6 years or more.
6 or 7, I think.
10, there you go. So it's been around for a while, and it's programmed into our system. So we can have forecasted economic impact and actual economic impact. It just populates automatically in our events because we have ownership of that formula. The DI model, Destinations International model, is something we have access to through Visit Boise. And our contract administrator plugs in figures after the end of every event to calculate the Destinations International economic impact figure. Now, DI is widely accepted in the industry as a reliable metric for tracking economic impact. It's been vetted by DI and Oxford Economics. And so we think it's a sound number, sound calculation, but there is a huge variance that we saw in 2023. And part of that was due to gaining access to a different module within the DI calculator called LPE module. It's the local and public event module. So before that module was being used, we were just assigning, it was using a general economic impact calculator for the local events. This LPE module assigns a pretty significant value to the local attendee, basically making some assumptions that that person, even though they are a local person attending a local event, they're still spending dollars that they've, assuming wouldn't have otherwise spent had they not been going to that event. So we're seeing a big increase in economic impact from that module. We'll go back and kind of test that theory based on prior years using the LPE module as well as the other modules we have access to. But that's going to be likely the big contributing factor to this increase in economic impact. Also, we had higher spend events this year. Our equipment, service, and food and beverage rates went up. And so that's going to play into some increases in economic impact as well. But the main difference is access to the LPE model.
Which model do you feel is more accurate? BSU or the DI?
DI. I think the way it was created and developed through these industry credible, not that BSU is incredible, but I mean Destinations International Tourism Economics, which is part of Oxford Economics, is what they do. I think they have access to a lot more industry relevant data than BSU probably had at the time.
So is it essentially that in years past, we've underreported the local impact?
Potentially
Is that what I'm,
undervalued,
okay, I'm just trying
yeah.
to,
We were conservative. So again, we will circle back with more information on this, but any other questions on this particular slide right now? This is drilling down into the sales team goals, and so as Cody kind of mentioned, we had been really tracking goals based on quantity of how many leads, how many proposals, how many site visits, and I think there's a value to tracking that. We'll continue to do so and sort of monitor our pace year on year. But going into next year, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, we're focusing more on like the value of the business that we're confirming. But nonetheless, we had a good year. We met the goals that we set for the sales team. And so I just want to recognize Linda, Alexandra, Lori Brown, Kay Dillon, and Jennifer McMaster on a good 2023. Some highlights from the prior year. This is some of the information that the board has heard over the months, but I'd like to just capture them in the report today. The value of our contracts confirmed for future business. Our future forecasted revenue associated with those contracts went up 6% year on year. Room nights and economic impact is down slightly compared to our contracts from last year, and that was really largely due to Daughters of the Nile being confirmed last year. That event alone has over 4,000 room nights, 1 million in economic impact. So we saw a really big bump in our contract values last year due to Daughters of the Nile. Some of the big wins this past year was National Association of Extension 4-H. We've got a huge October happening. 4-H, Association for Computing Machinery, Polka Dot Powerhouse is in October, as well as one that's not listed on here, American Astronomical Society. Lots of new big conventions coming through Boise in October, so it'll be really exciting to see those operate. We had some high revenue generating events in 2023. 3 events snuck into our top 5 record revenue generating events, with festival exceeding 300,000 in revenue. Cellcore taking the number 2 spot, and then Botanical here in July, also a big revenue generator for Boise Center and the district.
Just take a moment to kind of explain real quick before we move on from that slide. So what we've done, and I talked a little bit about this, about the metric that we're using to kind of evaluate quality of event, revenue of the event, festival, an 8-day event, those other conventions, usually in the 5-day, Sunday through Thursday type booking. So again, that's important to kind of pay attention to how many days they take off the calendar to generate that revenue is something we're paying close attention to as well.
Yes, yeah, so, like those banquets, the 6-figure banquets, they're in the building 1, maybe 2 days. Those are quite valuable to the building, whereas you have a convention that's maybe generating the same amount, but they're taking 3, 4, 5 days of space off of our inventory, and so you kind of spread that revenue throughout the days. But then, you couple that with hotels, hotel rooms being occupied. A couple other highlights from 2023, of course, the Freeman Leadership Meeting. We were really happy to host that in August, along with some of the other venues in town. We expect to see an article probably any day now that's going to run in associations, conventions, and facilities. One of their innovation officers, Sherry Hess, is going to be quoted in that, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to share with all of our clients. I think it's going to give a lot of credibility to that campus concept and how well Freeman was able to execute it here. Idaho Farm Bureau Federation is one that just took place actually this month. We'll be returning, but December is seeing a lot of a good amount of conventions. I say that's 3 for this month, as well as a ton of holiday parties. So 3 conventions and then 30 other events taking place in the month, and put that in like the first 2-3 weeks of the month makes for a really busy December. But we're seeing huge returns on the revenue side. Some really tired teams, so definitely want to applaud the teams for actually executing all the events this month. The sales team is involved in industry organizations. Kay Dillon is on the advisory board for North Star. North Star's Independent Planner Education Convention. She's been attending that event for a few years now, and is, shares her perspective just kind of on industry outlook for that group. I'm well into my first year of chairing the Convention Center committee for International Association of Venue Managers. That keeps me busy, but it's also really really wonderful opportunity, just, you know, hearing what's happening with our peers across the country. I was just telling Cody, you know, we're working with Adam Sachs, who's actually with Oxford Economics, Tourism Economics, on potentially bringing back the PricewaterhouseCoopers report for convention centers. It basically is kind of a benchmarking report for if you're this size facility, you know, how many days are you occupied? Just lots of kind of, you can make some industry comparisons with your peers. So working with him on getting that report back up and running. Just some pictures from the year. On the left was taken at IAVM's Venue Connect in Pittsburgh. This is from the sales track, which has been a really huge success. Connect went to a marketplace, joined Visit Boise partner Shannon Fullerton in DC last month. We held 24 appointments and hosted a Boise reception. And my takeaway, along with, you know, what the team was hearing in Las Vegas at IMX, is that there's a lot of interest in Boise. Planners are really receptive to coming in for site visits. So I anticipate seeing a lot of new faces coming through the building to check out our space, sort of the campus concept, new properties coming online next year. We're really going to be pursuing site visits, getting planners into the city in the coming year. So then shifting gears into 2024. Team goals, this is where, nope, I jumped way too far ahead. Here are KPIs for the building. Again, similar to what we had for 2023, of course, some increases year on year. Just tracking attendance, room nights, economic impact. The asterisk there is our current forecasted economic impact is based on the DSC model. It's what we have access to for forecasting. We'll see if we can improve upon the variance before the end of the year, get our formula closer to what we're seeing for actual economic impact. But so far, what's on the books is in good shape for meeting targets at the end of the year. It is full, and we'll get into that a little bit more, how packed the calendar is. Team goals, we did make a big shift this year. So again, we've moved away from just how many proposals, how many leads are we receiving, and really focusing on the value of the business we're confirming. So we've set kind of 3 metrics: future booked revenue, future booked room nights, and then future booked economic impact. The targets we set for the team are about 5% over where we ended FY23. So we're excited. I think it's gonna give us an opportunity to really assess the events before we book them, make sure that we're being really intentional about when they're booked, leaving the calendar open to book more events, you know, making sure that we're not taking up an entire week by booking something small in the middle of the week. So this is, I think, is just gonna really reinforce what we've been trying to do for several years now. We're putting a goal to it. Okay, now this is one slide, and I'll echo Cody here. If this is something that is just maybe way too much in one slide, I would love to your feedback. But I think it is important information and something, you know, if you look at it a little bit more closely after the meeting, certainly happy to answer any questions if you shoot me an email or give me a call. But what we're looking at here is 2024 broken down into quarters based on actuals for the same quarter in 2023. Now, the main takeaway is that 2024 events, we're more booked than we were in 2023 at the same time. And where to phrase this, if we were to rewind 1 year, we have more events than where we were same time year prior, looking ahead, if that makes sense. So we're up 26% on number of events on the books, 12% on attendance, 29% on room nights, and you can see the number 20% on economic impact and 29% on revenue on the books. So basically, there's not a lot of dates or space left. We will have short-term bookings, but it will probably be smaller type of events, smaller conventions. We're not going to see those big, huge citywides booking in the year for the year just because there's not the availability. comparing Q1, you see that's the one quarter we're actually down year on year in terms of room nights and economic impact. And partly that's due to we had a couple sizable non-repeating conventions in Q1 last year. Society for Range Management and Western Society for Weed Science, both taking place in February. Together, those were about 4,400 people, over 3,000 room nights. And so I think that just kind of shows how impactful those non-repeating national type of conventions can be to room nights and economic impact. It's not a bad thing. We really enjoy a lot of repeat business in our Q1. You know, January and February have a ton of annual banquets. We have repeat conventions in there with IATA, INLA, and so you know, we're limited on the weeks we can sell for new conventions in Q1. Some notable events for 2024. Daughters of the Nile is a big one here. I think that's going to end up being the largest event that will have come through Boise Center when it gets here in June. Over 4,000 room nights, about 1,200 attendees. We're anticipating 2.1 million in economic impact, and the plans are already well underway with Stacy and Kay on getting this event planned out for June. So team tactics for 2024. We've talked about the limited availability on the calendar. So our goal is to really shift client focus, whether it's having them be flexible on their pattern, their dates, and if that's not the case, then really encourage them to start looking at future years, having them source 2025, 2026 or beyond, trying to fill in the calendar for those future years where we actually have some dates and space left. Part of our decisions for when we're allowing those events to book will be that event assessment. Cody mentioned the scoring that was developed. I think it's going to be really nice. So it'll kind of have some consistency across both teams, sales and event teams, and how we're valuing the events, what we're looking at, and when those events can book. And really, it's intended to protect those future dates for the larger events. So again, not really doing anything different, but just making sure we're all rowing in the same direction on both teams. We've got several hosted events coming up right around the corner, January 19th. Hopefully everyone saw the invite for that. We'll be hearing some updates from Cody as well as Kristen, I believe. We've invited our hotel partners, some stakeholders throughout the community, and we'll be excited to kick off a new year to sharing with the community what Boise Center has coming up in the coming months in the year. The next three events are client events. We've got the Treefort Fam. This is a great partnership with Treefort, Visit Boise, Hotel 43 will be the host property for this one, and we're targeting planners based in the Denver area and Washington State. For that event, Meeting Stay Live is new for us. So this is similar to Connect Pacific Northwest. It's an appointment-based program, one that we attend. Typically we're going to, it's been to Las Vegas, Palm Springs, Victoria, British Columbia. And so we're excited to be hosting that one. That will take place in August. We're estimating about 30 to 35 planners for that one. And Hotel Renegade will be the host property, which is going to be really cool. I did a hard hat tour of the space about a month or two ago, and really nice touches in those rooms. Every room's going to have a copper soaking tub. I mean, just great attention to detail on that property. We're really excited to showcase that with these new planners. Then finally, the customer advisory board taking place in September. Just to kind of close out industry news and trends, what we're seeing in 2024, bleisures sticking around, kind of that attendee profile, is expecting them to either add on time, pre or post event. Planners would like to bring, a plus one, a friend or a family member on their trips, kind of turning the work travel into vacation travel as well. Planners are focusing on sustainability. So as we're talking with clients, we're definitely, that geothermal heating component with Boise Center is top of mind. Sourcing locally, avoiding food waste. Those are all things that are going to be really important for us to bring to the forefront when we're talking to planners. Then finally, that experiential that continues to be you know, what planners are looking for when they're delivering events. Looking at new venues, opportunities to kind of really immerse the attendees into the community. And I think we're really well positioned to deliver on that. This is just looking at costs rising. I don't think it's really a surprise to anyone, but planners are faced with higher costs per attendee, higher food and beverage costs, room rates continue to go up. And so, you know, suppliers are kind of in the driver's seat right now. We're able to keep costs high because the demand is there. But I think there's also the component of the properties and hotels are really trying to compensate for higher operating costs as well. So that's why we're seeing these prices where they are. I think some economic, depending on what happens there may be some lessening of these costs, but for now they're staying pretty high.
Those are national averages, right?
Correct, yes. So just to kind of close us out, you know, what does all this information mean for us? You know, we're definitely going to be facing the limited availability in 2024, so kind of managing expectations for when planners should really be thinking about Boise and Boise Center. I think they're going to be surprised to know, like, oh, we're already booked, 2025 is getting full, so really kind of shifting their focus ahead and having those conversations, encouraging site visits. We're, you know, battling kind of the cost perception. I think there's this idea that our destination should be more affordable than it is, and you know, it's a good problem to have. We're full, we're in demand, and so our goal will be to kind of balance that with the savings that they'll see at the center. I mean, really, when we're comparing us nationally, we're really affordable when it comes to food and beverage and IT. Having the opportunity to have those conversations with planners is going to be really important. Just to end on a high note, you know, I think we're still, there's a lot of interest in Boise. I would say we're still kind of the new kid on the block, and so that's a fun position to be in when we're visiting with planners and when we're on the road. We certainly have access to the outdoors, which is, I think, you know, unique for us and how close it is, especially to our building. The safe and walkable is always going to be important. I think it's maybe not always the most exciting thing to talk about, but that's you know, certainly a feather in our cap and something that we want the planners to experience firsthand. And then finally, just again, the campus experience, we think there's a lot of potential there. And for some of the groups that have outgrown us, we'll be visiting with them on how to execute their event using more facilities, not just Boise Center. That'll take any questions.
Although safe and walkable isn't that interesting, I have to say that I'm sourcing properties in Seattle and Portland, and my client has specifically said, just avoid this whole area. So, because it is such a problem.
Right.
So, toot the horn.
Are we missing out on a lot because of size?
That's a good question. I mean, our main reason for losing business is still that dates aren't available.
Which equates to size.
Not necessarily. I mean,
if we had more space.
If we had more space, then we would have, yes. But we do have events that are too big for us, and if that's the case, then we would code that lost reason as, you know, Boise Center not large enough. I can pull a report that specifically shows what events we are losing because we're just not big enough, but having more space certainly would give us more inventory to sell.
And it would potentially, well, kind of just speak to that with the opportunity. I think some people maybe aren't even engaging us because they know we're not big enough. And
That
so-
was my question.
Yeah, I mean, if they need 200,000 square feet, they're not even gonna call.
Exactly. So we're not capturing that data right now on the people that maybe just, we don't even know would potentially look at Boise. So lost business isn't even showing up on that report.
Just, is it convention square footage or is it hotel availability or a combo thereof?
It would be kind of everything. I mean, you start talking about, even if we had a bigger facility, we'd still be up against,
Do we have enough hotel rooms to accommodate them in place?
right?
Where I kind of look at that is right now the demand on the local side is such that we would be able to get more business because we pick up more local events that we're saying, hey, the dates aren't available. and then the convention side, so it'd be a little bit of a combo. I think we could do more events with the current hotels that we've got, but it would be adding more on the local side right now because of that hotel occupancy and availability.
Madam Chair, if I may, so Ali, do you feel like based on the plan that was just approved, I believe last month, the month before, do you have the tools and resources needed to mitigate the cons and capitalize on the pros that we have? Is there anything missing?
I mean, I think what will be to our advantage is getting planners here. That's why we've been really focused on bringing those industry events here, because we do see the return when, you know, planners are coming in for a FAM or, you know, the meetings today live, actually having them experience the product really gives us traction we need to close a deal. I think we're still we're kind of an unknown. People don't really know what to expect when they think of Boise, and so the site visits are really helpful. As far as having the tools, yes, I think we have what we need to sell our current space.
When was our last FAM, the one I attended?
In July. July, and then we had a customer advisory board in the fall. So the summer FAM, the CBD has decided, it sounds like they've decided to table the summer FAM, which typically takes place in July, just because meetings stay live is, I mean, like 2 weeks after when the summer FAM would typically take place. But we are bringing in the Tree Fort FAM. So I think that one's gonna be really, a really cool way to showcase Boise.
On this thing, I don't know if you've got a copy of the Momentous Convention summary stats. The last two on lead sources have some interesting things to me. Visit Boise is getting a very high percentage of leads, whereas BC prospecting is relatively low, but the conversion is amazing for BC prospecting.
Yeah, the BC prospecting captures a lot of our annuals as well, so that's where you kind of see the swing in conversion, just because it's sort of like they hit the year mark and then they're gonna contract again. Visit Boise, we like to see that number high for Visit Boise as far as lead source. You know, we're paying them to go out and prospect for us as well, and so seeing that Visit Boise source high is a good thing. Web inquiries have performed really well. I know Anna's gonna go into a little bit of this in her presentation.
That makes sense. I was gonna give you a lot of props for having a high conversion rate.
In DC is where a lot of associations are, right?
Yes, tons of associations in DC. We're gonna focus more on Chicago this year as well. I think it's kind of similar to DC. It's the more you get to know the planners there, it's kind of a tight-knit community. So, you know, Shannon Fullerton at Visit Boise, her focus has been a lot on DC. We've just attended that event in November. I'm a member of the MPI chapter in Chicago now, so I'll be planning to make a couple trips out to Chicago this year, get to know those planners a little bit better and see if we, you know, that FaceTime with them is just so important.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. This is very interesting and helpful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. We'll try to be brief. Informative but brief. Informative, interesting, and brief.
Oh, that's how we like it.
No. Let's get started. Let's deep dive in. Well, I've been asked to give you a communications, public relations, and kind of marketing recap for the year. I visited and gave, I think June, July, a mid-year recap. So this is kind of like putting that top layer of frosting on the year of the cake for the year. So in 2023, we had some really positive meetings, industry editorial coverage. So these are meetings and convention industry publications that have included Boise Center in their articles. Some are mentioned, some are quotes, some are both. Many include photos. But starting on the far your left, the new heights for meetings and incentives. This is Smart Meetings. It's a article about mountain destinations from coast to coast and for new heights for meetings and incentives. And it was interesting, I spoke with the editor about Boise being a great mountain city, and I knew it was kind of a, what would you call that, a wag, because I wouldn't put us with Vail or Sun Valley, but I would put us still as a mountain city. But there's a nice quote from me, there's a photo of Boise Center, they include that downtown is very walkable, 10 minutes from the airport. And included in this article are other cities like Grand Tetons, Asheville, North Carolina, Vail, Colorado, so it was a nice win. In the middle is preview meetings and incentives, and this is an editor that wrote about his firsthand experience. He attended the Visit Boise FAM. There were 5 meetings industry media personnel here on site. And he highlights downtown Boise offers a variety of hotel options that are all within a block or two of Boise Center. Talks about the urban downtown, our in-house catering team. And he goes on to quote about the 4-course menu at Boise Center that included duck confit and a 12-hour braised beef short rib. So just very positive. On the far right, the pink meetings today. Another writer that participated in the Visit Boise FAM who did a 2-page spread with photos and recap of their experience in Boise. She talks about the downtown Boise's abundant charm, walkability, public art, and includes Boise Center details. And these are like postcard moments, and you hope for these. So when you see them, you're, yes, we'll take that as a nice win. And then some of this will look familiar. Media and PR, the opening of the Idaho Central Aquatic Center. I worked with Red Sky PR and led the media efforts around that opening of the Aquatic Center. And thank you, Chair Mucko, for your interviews that you did that day. You were in, I think, every news outlet for a couple of days, which was we appreciate that. And also a nice LinkedIn post with the ribbon cutting scissors and board members and photos. And then on the far right, this is just recently published, and I emailed it to you, Northwest Meetings and Events, which is a regional meetings publication. But when we sent the press release about Cody being selected as the executive director, they asked to do an interview, so we postponed it till later in the fall. So he was interviewed in October, and then the publication hired a photographer to take his portrait. That was done, a few weeks ago. But they did a great interview, and it's very positive about Cody, his experience, his vision for the center, and so forth. So I want to make sure. That magazine has a circulation of 18,000 in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and another 3,000 in their e-newsletter, and it's going right to the audience that we want. So appreciate that. And this is kind of our best of slide in 2023. Our PR promotional, Boise Center was named a best of meetings today, best convention center. For the 5th year, we were recognized as a Reader's Choice by Smart Meetings magazine. This is in the middle, best conference center. And then on your right is top workplaces. Boise Center for the 2nd year, our employees, team members were surveyed and voted us in the ranking of a top workplace. And then for the first time on the top right, Smart Meetings magazine takes all the Smart Stars Award winners and puts them in a mix, and at the end of the year says, you all are platinum choice. It's the editors and the publication that chooses those. So Boise Center was recognized as a platinum choice award winner convention center, and it's just another big kudos PR moment for us. Now I'm transitioning, taking off the PR cap and switching more into the marketing and digital and website and event leads hat. Come with me as we go through that. Here, our digital campaign, and for those of you on the marketing committee know that our digital campaign is our largest and most robust monetary wise campaign that we run during the year marketing campaign. It's an important tool for us to increase brand awareness, generate website traffic, and then generate RFPs or event leads. This year, we started out the year by retooling the ads that you see in turquoise. The thinking now really in the digital is that we've all become so savvy that we don't want to see a lot of words. We want to see beautiful pictures and have quick, snappy taglines. So the ads at the center of it all, those two people sitting at that table, that is the top performing display ad of the year. Boise Makes It Happen on the right, that's a retargeting ad. That ad is served to you after you've already responded and clicked on the first ad. And that nice shot of down the kind of city view is the highest producing retargeting ad. On the far left, or excuse me, your right, my left, these are native ads, and the native ads, we ran these for a second year. We did it last year, added these to our media mix, and they were the highest performing ad last year, and they didn't disappoint this year either. The highest performing, largest driver of impressions at 11.4 million for the year with 20,349 clicks. So that's our workhorse of our media campaign, our native ads. We also do SEM and search, which still are very, very good. That's like a modern Yellow Pages search type ad. We ran social and YouTube ads this year as well. And here, oops, sorry, excuse me, I forgot to click ahead. This year, we ran a mini campaign or a niche campaign on LinkedIn because digital and internet and privacy and tracking has all evolved. We really target a B2B audience. We're looking for somebody who's buying for their organization or their association or their corporation versus the wedding and the ones we like. We love those, but we're not really advertising to those as much. But LinkedIn offers some incredible targeting capabilities based on job titles, email addresses, industries, types of commitments. We did well. We ran our first LinkedIn carousel campaign. It ran from September until the middle of November. What it proved is it really increased our traffic and it increased the clicks, scrolls, and page views in really good markets that we wanted to be in, and that's like Chicago. We saw a big jump in traffic this year from Washington, DC area. We saw another jump in Colorado. And you're able to make real-time adjustments to those campaigns, which we did at 2 weeks and a month, and then at 2 months. So I wouldn't have told you 5 years ago that LinkedIn was something we would go into. We're now, this year, from creating an awareness and getting your ad in front of people who are buyers and business and networking oriented, it's better. Where Facebook has changed so dramatically that you don't have those targeting capabilities anymore. On the far right, that's our top producing search ad. I will tell you that by optimizing our placements and bidding in summer 2023, we reduced our costs for native campaigns by 188% and our display campaigns by another 13%. And our website traffic for the year, I want to go over these stats really quickly for you. Our overall changes to the media campaigns proved to be very beneficial. Our website traffic and engagement both increased year over year. Last year was a record year post-COVID. We hit highest website traffic we had been since right about the 2019 level. Specifically, our website sessions increased 34%. Oh, I'm sorry, did you say something, Chase? Sorry, 34% over the prior year. Our users increased 37%. And I love to see that the pages increased as well, because that tells you people are finding the information, they're spending more time on the site. To wrap it all up with here, our traffic, as I said, increased. Paid media jumped up as a traffic source by over 30%. Organic search jumped up 7.8%, which tells us that brand awareness is paying off. I am encouraged by the media because I our traffic was pretty steady until about August, and then we slowed down, and as soon as we hit that, the go button on the LinkedIn campaign, it jumped back up and hit the highest levels it had been at previously in the year, and that, I see that as very positive. This year, our event inquiry forms, and this is coming full circle to our KPIs. Event inquiries are lead forms submitted via the website. We had a total of 370 leads submitted this year. That's 40% jump year over year. 90 of those were conventions and conferences leads, 9 of those booked, 7 of them have dates on hold, and 58 were lost. The other roughly 2/3 are short-term holiday party banquets and meetings. I don't have the stats today on what booked, but that I would expect. You would expect a higher portion of short-term year-and-year events to be booked. Our top geography cities this year, number 3 was Ashburn, Virginia. And that's the first time I can remember in the last 5 years that we've seen an East Coast city and a DC. Usually we'll see Virginia, DC in the states, top 5 states, but not cities. So that's, we'll take, between the convention leads that were submitted, we're delivering our ads to the right audience, to the right people that we want to buy our product, and to see the traffic coming from those geographics, I think is very positive. We also had big jumps from Sacramento and San Jose and San Diego. Answer any questions? Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your time. Thank you for funding our marketing projects. And everybody.
Are we on to C? Chase?
Not a lot to report, but wanted to touch base with everybody before we finish out the year, just on projects. The people reaching out have slowed down, so we haven't evaluated as many since last month. We probably had 2 more meetings, but it doesn't look like things are going to be able to progress too far unless we want to have a really big checkbook. The projects that are coming out and kind of preliminary construction numbers to do any type of feasibility on them is very high. Maybe interest rates come down over the next year or so, that'd be more feasible, but if we're getting into the easily $25 to $40 million range on a lot of these that we're evaluating, and it's just a very big monthly check that we'll have to write for ongoing. So I don't know that there's anything that's really viable at the moment that will fit, into what the 5 categories are that we have to fit for our mission. So I think one thing for us maybe to think about, on your own is what kind of projects might make sense, because maybe we can go out and instead of being reactive, see if there's something that we can proactively go and do. The reason I was asking some of these questions today is there something that we could do with more meeting space that would generate more room nights that would then make it so that we can get, serve all of the 5 things, the own, operate, run, that kind of stuff. Because if we're turning away a lot of business, maybe it is re-looking at some sort of, bigger center to augment this. Or if you talk to Visit Boise, one of the things that they say generates a lot of room nights is athletics, right? So we've been looking at those things, but it just hasn't penciled so far. Is there anything else that anybody can think of that we could be looking at? I think if it's gonna be a large building, it's gonna have to be to find something that is existing, that is under replacement cost. Because construction numbers right now just aren't making it feasible to do a lot of other things. So if there's an existing 100,000 square foot building that's $130 a foot instead of $250, that might be something to look at, which there isn't much of, but.
I'll just speak to kind of the bonding side. I think Chase brought up a really good point here on giving more information to Chase and myself with the, hey, we can bond up to this amount, but what can we really afford under our current cash flows? And that was something I was working on with Anne Marie, and I think I want to get more targeted on that to be able to give Chase and myself very clear indication on when we get presented by another potential partner, or we're going out and looking at something, we know we're in the right realm in particular, but also I think to add to Chase's point, projects that maybe could be done in a phased out approach is a potential right now. So buying land, I know we used to own parcel B, things like that, that would allow you then to then go, okay, now in 2 years, the next phase would be this, and then 2 years beyond that. A lot of communities that have grown from the size Boise is into the bigger Spokane type, they did this in a phased out approach in a lot of ways. And so I think that's something that we could take a look at. But at the end of the day, I think it's ultimately up to the board on giving us the information that what do you guys want? What do you want to look at? We can sit back and wait and do the reactive thing, but I think to Chase's point, we're probably going to be more successful on that proactive approach if we find the things that fit statutorily and also make sense from a cash flow perspective. There's a lot of community projects that we can do that would just drain down on the capital needs in the future that may not have the same ROI as something that we could either break even or make money at.
Where do you see construction costs? Do you think they're gonna kind of hold steady? Do you see them decreasing? Are we there? I mean, is it just, it is what it is at this point?
Apparently steady or increasing. Labor should continue to go up once big projects kick off and go on for, the next 10 years at Micron, for example. Meta kicking off another, St. Luke's doing another one. It's just gonna pull a lot of the contractors out, so labor should go up. Materials seem to have somewhat leveled off. Some have even gone down, but the labor is gonna be the hard part.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think keeping an eye open for land, keeping an eye, continuing to vet these projects, we can put all the brains together and kind of see what we can do next.
I want to work closely with Anne Marie on giving you guys the information on that, like I said, that bonding capacity number and what it is that we can bond, and then also maybe what we can currently cash flow based on what we have the ability to pay back on with the current cash flow without increasing that. Because again, it's kind of the way I use it is the analogy. It's like you can afford a home at this price, doesn't mean you should go buy a home at that price. So
Well,
just because you can finance a home for that, there's a better way to put it.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, Madam Chair, I continue to go to my daughter's volleyball tournaments and parking a mile away.
Yeah.
At the Idaho Athletic Center off of Franklin and Eagle Road. And we're traveling to Reno in April for another tournament. So I'm curious to find out more about the Spokane, the phased approach. Because I believe, is that what you referenced,
Yeah.
their indoor multi-purpose
They've
sports
done
facility?
multiple with their convention center. I think they've done a phased out expansion, and then also with their sports facilities, that was kind of done that way. We purchased land and built the facility and opened it up. That was kind of their
Gotcha.
so.
okay. And that's something that we can, also chat with Carrie, right, over at CBB and, just get their heartbeat on where things are going. I know that in the past she's mentioned, amateur sports, and that is something where they think they feel like they're losing business bringing it here because we don't have the facilities for that, but wouldn't hurt to.
I'll let Mike kind of speak to this, but again, some of the challenges we're running into is the ownership of land versus leasing the land. Some of that is also putting us in a position where we're kind of having conversations of what is our attorneys comfortable with the district getting into from that perspective. So.
And that's where maybe finding a piece of land and buying it might be a way to go too.
We'll figure out a way to get it done. You guys define the project, we'll get there.
Well, thank you for continuing to vet and be in the face of that and taking all the meetings.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, and your expertise in that industry is super valuable, so thank you. And
I anticipate right after the first of the year, we'll kind of pick back up. I'll probably set up a meeting with Chase and kind of look at what our plan for the year is going to be, and I'm sure others will start reaching out too after the holidays, because that's, I think, possibly why I quieted down a little. So.
all right, any other questions for Chase? All right, see no other business before the board, the meeting's adjourned.
Sorry.
Yep, I didn't hit it yet.
You wanna know what the board needs? I would like to know next time we build a skating rink in our front yard before we do it.
Yeah, and that's DBA, right?
No, it's not our front yard, well, it's our front door, it's our front yard, but we don't own it, so it's the city's property.
I thought we were responsible.
We are through the contract, the city contracts Boise Center to maintain, program the space, but ultimately it's the city's property. So they can do what they want with it. We are just contracted to maintain it. We get paid under that. And then when we program the events, they directed, hey, this is something that they wanted to see happen. In particular, DBA worked with the city, and then we just helped facilitate it, for lack of. But I don't think we would have a say in that. Happy to explore that if you guys would like, but I do not believe we have the authority. What's that?
How is it working?
The ice rink? I don't know if it's been as popular or, and I think staffing's probably has something to do with that. I know that Jennifer was struggling with some of the staffing in the regular hours to be able to keep people out there. When that Saturday night, it's activated. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen more than 25, 30 people on it at one time. But at the end of the day, I think it's doing exactly what they've intended, which is to bring people into downtown. The DBA's intent of it is to really put people out and to go shopping, come down here, take advantage of the free ice skating, and then maybe go have lunch, go shopping in the shops downtown, and take care of the DBA members. But I'm happy to have a conversation in the future, but this wasn't a Boise Center or a district supported technically event. But doesn't mean that it's a bad one. I'm not saying that.
And it's temporary, correct?
Yes, they are planning on doing this for the next 10 years. That is the investment that the DBA made. So they would like to keep that thing up for 10 years.
I think what I need sometime this year, no hurry, but I'd love somebody to explain to me what all these alphabet CCDC, CBA, Visit Boise, CBA Foundation.
DBAF,
There seems to
DBA,
be at least
or DBF.
a half a dozen, and Trailhead probably got 20 more. that are tasked with enhancing Boise.
Either urban renewal district, yeah, absolutely.
It would be nice for me to know where we overlap, and it's shocking to me that we are responsible for maintaining Boise Center, but we don't have a say over whether they put a skating rink in there.
The plaza, yeah, we have control of Boise Center because that's our property, but the plaza we do not, yeah, agreed.
Except we maintain it.
Yep, just that's, we're a third,
So
we're
what if we
basically
say
a
We're not
contractor.
gonna maintain it. We're not gonna do a skating rink. What a dumb idea.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
no problem. Hey, meeting's adjourned.
You don't wanna go see it?